Picture this. You wake up at 3 a.m. not because your alarm went off, not because you heard a noise, but because your brain decided it was the perfect time to replay every embarrassing moment from the past decade. You lie there, staring at the ceiling, and suddenly it hits you like a freight train. Existence itself feels like a cosmic joke, and you're the punchline. If you've ever felt this way, congratulations. You're not broken. You're not weird. You're not alone. You've just stumbled upon one of humanity's oldest and most profound realizations. And today we're going to explore why a grumpy German philosopher from 200 years ago might hold the key to understanding your midnight existential crisis and how to turn that pain into your secret weapon. But first, let me ask you something that might sound crazy. What if I told you that your suffering isn't a bug in the system, but a feature? What if the very thing that makes you want to crawl under your covers and disappear is actually trying to tell you something revolutionary about the nature of reality itself? Stay with me, because by the end of this journey, you're going to understand why existence hurts so much. And more importantly, how to weaponize that agony into something that transforms not just your life, but your entire relationship with being human. The man who dared to say what we all feel. Let's talk about Arthur Schopenhauer, a man who basically invented the art of being professionally pessimistic. While other philosophers were busy trying to convince everyone that life is beautiful and meaningful, Schopenhauer looked around and said, "Hold up, are we living in the same universe? Because from where I'm sitting, this whole existence thing is kind of a nightmare." Now, before you roll your eyes and think, "Great, another depressing philosopher," hear me out. Schopenhauer wasn't just some guy who woke up on the wrong side of the bed every day for 72 years. He was a brilliant thinker who had the courage to articulate something most of us feel, but are too afraid to admit. Life is fundamentally difficult, and pretending otherwise is exhausting. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is the hook that's going to change everything you think you know about suffering. Schopenhauer didn't just identify the problem. He found a way to use it. He discovered that understanding why existence hurts is the first step to transcending that hurt. Think about it. When you're in physical pain, what's the first thing you do? You try to understand what's causing it. You don't just accept that your back hurts. You want to know why it hurts. Is it your posture? Did you sleep wrong? Are you stressed? Because once you understand the cause, you can address it. Schopenhauer did the same thing with existential pain. He diagnosed the human condition with surgical precision, and then, in a twist that would make any self-help guru jealous, he showed us how to use that diagnosis as a roadmap to freedom. The will to live, your internal tyrant. Here's where things get wild. Schopenhauer identified what he called the will to live. And no, this isn't some inspirational poster slogan. This is the relentless, invisible force that drives every single thing you do, want, fear, and dream about. It's the puppet master pulling your strings, and most of the time you don't even know it's there. The will to live is like having a demanding boss who never takes a day off. It's the voice that says, "You need to eat. Now you need to find a mate. Now you need to succeed. Now you need to be happy. Now you need to achieve more. Now you need to worry about the future. Now you need to fix the past." It's exhausting, right? Because the will to live is never satisfied. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. You can pour all the success, all the love, all the achievement, all the pleasure you want into your life, and it will never be enough. The will to live will always find something else to want, something else to fear, something else to chase. But here's the thing that's going to blow your mind. Recognizing this isn't depressing, it's liberating. Because once you see the puppet strings, you can start to cut them. Imagine you're playing a video game and you keep losing. You're getting frustrated, throwing your controller, maybe even questioning your gaming skills. But then someone tells you, hey, this game is literally designed to be impossible to win. The AI cheats, the rules change randomly, and the only way to win is to realize it's rigged. Suddenly, everything changes. You're not a failure, you're just playing a rigged game. And once you know it's rigged, you can start playing by different rules. That's exactly what Schopenhauer discovered about existence. Life feels hard because it is hard. It's supposed to be hard. The will to live has designed it that way to keep you engaged, keep you striving, keep you, well, alive. The pendulum of human misery. Now, let's get into the really juicy stuff. Schopenhauer had this brilliant insight about human suffering that explains why even your best days somehow leave you feeling empty. He called it the pendulum swing between wanting and having. Picture a pendulum. On one side, you have want, that gnawing, desperate feeling when you don't have something you think you need. Maybe it's a relationship, a job, money, recognition, or just the perfect cup of coffee. This side of the pendulum is pure suffering. It's anxiety, longing, frustration, and that hollow feeling in your chest that screams, I need this thing to be okay. So you work, you strive, you hustle. You get the thing, you win, you succeed. The pendulum swings to the other side. And for exactly 2.5 seconds, you feel nothing. Not joy, not satisfaction, not the deep contentment you were promised. Just nothing. This is what Schopenhauer called boredom. But it's not the kind of boredom you feel when you're waiting for a bus. This is existential boredom. It's the crushing realization that getting what you wanted didn't fix the fundamental problem of being human. And then, because the universe has a sense of humor, the pendulum swings back. Now you want something else. The cycle begins again. Here's what's absolutely wild about this. We all know this is true. We've all experienced it. You've gotten the job, the relationship, the thing you were sure would make you happy, and then found yourself staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering why you still feel empty. But nobody talks about it. We pretend that the next thing will be different, the next achievement, the next purchase, the next relationship, that will be the one that finally makes us feel complete. Schopenhauer saw through this lie. He realized that the pendulum isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. The will to live keeps us swinging between wanting and having, because that's how it ensures we stay alive and engaged with existence. The plot twist. Your suffering is actually intelligence. Here's where this gets interesting, and this is the part that's going to make you rethink everything you thought you knew about pain. What if your suffering isn't a sign that something's wrong with you? What if it's actually a sign that something's right with you? Think about it. When you're suffering, what's really happening? You're paying attention. You're noticing that something isn't working. You're aware that there's a gap between how things are and how you think they should be. That awareness, that's intelligence. That's your consciousness doing exactly what it's supposed to do, recognizing patterns, identifying problems, seeking solutions. The person who never suffers is either delusional or dead. Suffering is the price of consciousness. It's the cost of being aware enough to notice that existence is strange, complicated, and often painful. But here's the twist that changes everything. Once you realize that suffering is intelligence, you can start to use it strategically. Instead of trying to eliminate your pain, you can start to learn from it. Instead of seeing your existential crisis as a problem to be solved, you can start to see it as information to be processed. Your 3 a.m. anxiety attacks? They're not evidence that you're broken. They're evidence that you're awake. Your dissatisfaction with your achievements? That's not ingratitude. That's wisdom. Your sense that something fundamental is missing from your life? That's not depression. That's insight. The art of weaponizing agony. Now we get to the good stuff. The part that transforms you from a victim of existence into a warrior of wisdom. Schopenhauer didn't just diagnose the problem, he prescribed the cure. And the cure isn't what you think. It's not positive thinking. It's not gratitude journaling. It's not pretending everything is fine when it's not. The cure is something far more radical. Acceptance combined with strategic detachment. Here's how it works. Step 1. Acknowledge the game. Stop pretending that life is supposed to be easy or that you're supposed to be happy all the time. The will to live has designed existence to be challenging because challenge keeps you engaged. Once you accept this, you stop fighting the fundamental nature of reality and start working with it. Step 2. Become a conscious player. Instead of being unconsciously driven by the will to live, you become aware of its strategies. When you feel that desperate need for something, you can pause and ask, is this me wanting this, or is this the will to live trying to keep me engaged? Step 3. Use suffering as a compass. Your pain becomes your navigation system. When you're suffering, you're receiving information about where you are in relation to where you want to be. Instead of trying to eliminate the pain, you start to decode its message. Step 4. Practice strategic detachment. This doesn't mean becoming emotionally numb or giving up on your goals. It means holding your desires lightly. You can want things, work toward things, enjoy things, but you don't attach your fundamental sense of okayness to getting them. The wisdom of philosophical pessimism. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds incredibly depressing. How is this supposed to help me? And that's exactly the reaction Schopenhauer expected. He knew that calling yourself a pessimist doesn't exactly make you popular at parties. But here's the thing about philosophical pessimism. It's not about being negative for the sake of being negative. It's about being realistic about the human condition so you can work with it instead of against it. Think about it this way. If you're trying to navigate a forest, would you rather have a map that shows you all the dangerous areas, steep cliffs, and dead ends? Or would you prefer a map that only shows you the pretty flowers and sunny meadows? Schopenhauer's philosophy is like the first map. It shows you the real terrain of human existence, all the pitfalls, all the traps, all the places where you're likely to get lost. And armed with that knowledge, you can navigate much more skillfully. The person who knows that life is fundamentally difficult is rarely surprised by difficulty. They're prepared for it. They've built their resilience muscles. They've developed strategies for dealing with the inevitable challenges. The person who believes life is supposed to be easy is constantly shocked, disappointed, and thrown off balance by normal human experiences like rejection, failure, loss, and boredom. The practical magic of existential acceptance. Let's get practical for a moment. How does this actually work in real life? How do you weaponize your agony in a way that makes your daily existence better? Here's a real-world example. You're at work, feeling frustrated because you're not getting the recognition you think you deserve. The old you might spiral into resentment, self-doubt, or rage. But the Schopenhauer enlightened you recognizes what's happening. The will to live is creating a story about what you need to be okay, and then making you suffer when reality doesn't match that story. So instead of fighting the feeling or trying to positive think your way out of it, you observe it. You think, there's the will to live again, trying to convince me that my worth depends on external validation. Interesting. You don't have to eliminate the desire for recognition, you just hold it more lightly. This doesn't mean you stop working hard or advocating for yourself. It means you do these things from a place of strategic choice rather than desperate need. You're playing the game because you choose to play it, not because you're being unconsciously driven by forces you don't understand. The paradox of freedom through bondage. Here's where Schopenhauer's philosophy gets really mind-bending. He discovered that true freedom comes not from getting what you want, but from understanding why you want it. It's like the difference between being a puppet and being a puppeteer who's conscious of the strings. When you're unconsciously driven by the will to live, you're at the mercy of every desire, every fear, every impulse. You're reactive, defensive, always seeking the next thing that will make you feel better. You're free in the sense that you can choose your actions, but you're not free in the sense that you understand what's driving those choices. But when you become conscious of the will to live, when you see how it operates, when you understand its strategies, something amazing happens. You gain the ability to choose your relationship to your desires. You can want things without being enslaved by the wanting. You can work toward goals without attaching your identity to achieving them. This is the paradox. By accepting that you're not free from the will to live, you become free from being unconsciously controlled by it. By acknowledging that existence is fundamentally difficult, you stop wasting energy fighting that difficulty and start using it as fuel for growth. The comedy of human existence. Now let's talk about the cosmic joke of it all, because if you can't laugh at the absurdity of human existence, you're missing half the point. Schopenhauer had a wicked sense of humor about the human condition, and developing that sense of humor is crucial to weaponizing your agony. Think about it. We're these weird, conscious animals floating on a rock in space, driven by biological impulses we don't understand, creating elaborate stories about meaning and purpose, all while being completely mystified by our own existence. We spend our lives chasing things we don't really want, avoiding things that aren't really dangerous, and worrying about things that will probably never happen. It's absurd, it's ridiculous, it's hilarious. And recognizing the comedy of it all is incredibly liberating. When you can laugh at the absurdity of your own desperate seeking, when you can see the humor in your existential crises, when you can appreciate the cosmic joke of consciousness itself, you've achieved a kind of freedom that no amount of success or achievement can provide. The transformation. From victim to philosopher. Here's what happens when you really integrate Schopenhauer's insights. You stop being a victim of existence and start being a philosopher of it. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what can I learn from this? Your suffering becomes data. Your desires become objects of curiosity rather than masters of your behavior. Your fears become teachers rather than tyrants. Your whole relationship to being human shifts from resistance to investigation. This doesn't mean you become emotionally flat or that you stop caring about things. It means you care about things from a place of choice rather than compulsion. You engage with life fully while holding it lightly. You become like a skilled surfer who knows that waves are sometimes calm and sometimes chaotic, but never takes it personally. You learn to ride whatever the ocean of existence throws at you, not because you have to, but because you've chosen to develop the skills. The ripple effect. How your transformed suffering helps others. Here's something beautiful that happens when you weaponize your agony. You become a source of genuine comfort and wisdom for others, not because you're pretending everything is fine, but because you've learned to work skillfully with the fact that everything is not fine. When someone comes to you with their suffering, you don't try to fix them or cheer them up or give them platitudes. You simply recognize their pain as the same pain you've learned to work with. You can say, yes, existence is hard. Yes, you're not crazy for feeling this way. And yes, there's a way to work with this that transforms it into something valuable. You become a lighthouse for other people who are lost in the storm of human existence. Not because you've escaped the storm, but because you've learned to navigate it with skill and grace. The ultimate weaponization, turning pain into compassion. This is where Schopenhauer's philosophy reaches its highest expression. When you truly understand that suffering is the common thread that connects all conscious beings, something profound happens. You develop genuine compassion, not the shallow, pity-based compassion that says, "Oh, you poor thing," but the deep, wisdom-based compassion that says, "I see you. I understand. We're all in this strange predicament together." This compassion becomes your ultimate weapon against the isolation and meaninglessness that the will to live uses to keep you trapped. When you can see your own suffering reflected in others, when you can recognize the universal nature of the human struggle, you tap into something larger than your individual pain. Your agony becomes a bridge to connection rather than a wall that separates you from others. Your existential crisis becomes a doorway to understanding rather than a prison of despair. The daily practice, living the Schopenhauer way. So how do you actually live this philosophy on a day-to-day basis? How do you turn these insights into practical habits that transform your experience? Morning recognition. Start each day by acknowledging that today will bring some form of suffering, not because you're pessimistic, but because you're realistic. This isn't about expecting the worst. It's about being prepared for the inevitable challenges that conscious existence brings. Desire. Observation. Throughout the day, notice when the will to live is trying to convince you that you need something to be okay. Don't fight the desire, just observe it. Ask yourself, is this me wanting this? Or is this the will to live creating a story about what I need? Suffering as teacher. When you experience pain, frustration, or disappointment, pause and ask, what is this trying to teach me? Instead of immediately trying to escape the discomfort, spend a moment investigating what information it might contain. Strategic detachment. Practice holding your goals and desires lightly. Work toward them, but don't attach your fundamental sense of okayness to achieving them. You can want things without being enslaved by the wanting. Cosmic humor. Develop the ability to laugh at the absurdity of your own existence. When you catch yourself taking your drama too seriously, step back and appreciate the cosmic comedy of it all. The promise. What awaits on the other side. Here's what happens when you successfully weaponize your agony. You develop what Schopenhauer called the peace that passeth understanding. It's not the peace of getting what you want. It's the peace of understanding why you want it. You stop being at war with existence and start being curious about it. You stop trying to escape the human condition and start exploring it with fascination. You stop seeing your consciousness as a burden and start seeing it as an incredible gift, even when it hurts. This doesn't mean you become a saint or that you transcend all human emotion. It means you become a skilled player in the game of existence rather than a confused victim of it. You learn to work with the raw material of human experience, including pain, desire, fear, and longing, in ways that create meaning, connection, and genuine wisdom. The question that changes everything. As we near the end of this journey, I want to leave you with a question that has the power to transform your entire relationship to suffering. It's the question that Schopenhauer's philosophy ultimately points toward, and it's the question that can turn your agony into your greatest teacher. What if your pain is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be explored? What if your existential crisis is not a sign that something's wrong with you, but a sign that something's right with you? What if your dissatisfaction with shallow solutions is actually wisdom in disguise? What if your inability to be content with easy answers is actually a strength rather than a weakness? What if, and this is the big one, your suffering is the very thing that makes you human in the most beautiful, profound, and valuable way possible? The revolutionary act of embracing your agony in a world that constantly tells you to be happy, to think positive, to manifest your dreams. Schopenhauer's philosophy offers something revolutionary, permission to be honest about how hard existence really is. And in that honesty, you find not despair, but liberation. You stop pretending that you should be different than you are. You stop fighting the fundamental nature of consciousness. You stop trying to escape the human condition and start working with it skillfully. This is the ultimate weaponization of agony, using your pain as a doorway to wisdom, your suffering as a bridge to compassion, your existential crisis as a catalyst for genuine transformation. You become someone who can look at the incredible difficulty of existence and say, yes, this is hard. Yes, this is painful. Yes, this is confusing. And yes, this is also beautiful, meaningful, and worth engaging with fully. So here's my challenge to you. For the next week, try seeing your suffering as information rather than as a problem. When you feel that familiar existential ache, instead of trying to fix it or escape it, ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me? When you notice yourself desperately wanting something, pause and observe. Is this me wanting this? Or is this the will to live creating a story about what I need to be okay? When you feel frustrated with the difficulty of existence, try laughing at the cosmic absurdity of it all. Here I am, a conscious animal on a rock in space, getting upset about things that probably won't matter in 100 years. Start small. You don't need to transform your entire worldview overnight. Just begin to notice the patterns that Schopenhauer identified. Start to see the puppet strings of the will to live. Begin to hold your desires a little more lightly. And remember, you're not alone in this. Every conscious being struggles with existence. Every human being swings between wanting and having, between suffering and boredom, between meaning and meaninglessness. Your pain is not evidence of your failure. It's evidence of your humanity. The goal isn't to eliminate suffering. It's to transform your relationship to it. The goal isn't to escape the human condition. It's to engage with it more skillfully. The goal isn't to find easy answers. It's to develop the wisdom to work with difficult questions. If this exploration of Schopenhauer's philosophy resonated with you, if it helped you see your own suffering in a new light, if it gave you tools for working with the difficulty of existence, then hit that like button and let me know in the comments. What aspect of this philosophy speaks to you most? What's your biggest takeaway? And if you want to dive deeper into the wisdom of history's greatest philosophical minds, if you want to continue exploring how ancient insights can transform modern struggles, then subscribe and hit that notification bell, because this is just the beginning of our journey into the profound, the practical, and the transformative power of philosophical wisdom. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's struggling with their own existential questions, someone who's tired of shallow solutions to deep problems, someone who's ready to weaponize their agony into wisdom. Until next time, remember, your suffering is not your enemy. It's your teacher. And once you learn to listen to what it's trying to tell you, everything changes. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep transforming your pain into wisdom. The world needs more people who understand that the difficulty of existence is not a bug, it's a feature. And learning to work with that feature is the key to a life of genuine meaning, connection, and freedom.